this is Dr. O'Hara, and I want to go over grammar and punctuation, especially as it relates to some of the peculiarities in APA style. So I'm going to go over the comma, the semicolon, colon, apostrophe, and the hyphens. And in the grammar, we'll do capitalization and spelling, and then I'll go over some numbers. So I'm going to break this up into each of these sections to make the video shorter, and also easier for you to go back and just look at one thing if you're only interested in one area. So these are the books that are required in the Department of Health Science. This is the 6th edition of the publication manual that has everything in it. This one is just electronic references. It doesn't have everything that's in this book. So this is a book that's required. This one you can download from the library, or you can get a download from apa.org for $11. And then this is the dictionary that APA uses. And then these are the books that are required in classes that you would take from me. So I like the Grammar Girl book because it's written at the high school level, so it's very easy to understand. This book with the punctuation has all 15 parts of punctuation. This book on the Zen comma is the only book I've found that really covers the comma extensively. It's very short. And then I like this concise guide to the technical and academic writing because it goes over the 5-chapter paper and it does refer to APA style. All right, so let's start with commas. And in the Department of Health Science, we expect you to learn how to use the comma for elements in a series, so that's a list of 3 or more items. Compound sentence, which is a conjunction with 2 complete sentences, and commas for introductory phrases. So I'm going to go over these things and more to help you with your writing. So one thing about commas is they are separators. They separate dependent phrases either at the end or the beginning of the sentence. They separate out non-essential information. They separate out examples or descriptions, and they separate items in a list. So what we mean by non-essential information is that the information can be removed and the sentence will still make sense. For essential information, if you take the information out, it will not make sense. So that's the reason why there's no commas around essential information, and there are commas around non-essential information. All right, so the first uses the serial comma, or if you're going to have a list of 3 or more items. So whether you enumerate them or whether you just list them, there's always a comma before the conjunction and the last item in the list. So the most common conjunctions are and or. If you only have 2 items in the list, there's no comma here. And the list can be nouns, adjectives, verbs in the same tense, phrases with the same construction, just about anything. Okay, so we're going to use a comma with the conjunction in 2 complete sentences. So here I've got 2 complete sentences. I like ice cream. My favorite flavor is chocolate chip. Now I want to bring those 2 ideas together. So I'm going to use the comma with the conjunction, and I've got 2 complete sentences on either side. So do not use a comma if the phrase following the conjunction does not have a subject and a verb. So like this one has an example here. I like ice cream, and then other desserts. So there's really 2 items in the list here. So if I wanted to use the comma, then I have to have a complete sentence on this side and a complete sentence on the other side. So ask yourself these questions with the conjunction. Are there 3 or more items in a list? If yes, then you're going to use a comma with and. If there's only 2 items in the list, then there's no comma. Are there two complete sentences on either side of the conjunction? If no, then there's no comma. If yes, then you're going to use a comma. And remember that you cannot use a comma alone to separate two complete sentences. This is what we refer to as a comma splice. And you cannot use the conjunction alone with two complete sentences. It's a package deal. Okay, we use commas to separate introductory phrases from the main part of the sentence. So here I've put in bold the subject of the sentence. This is where the sentence starts. I've got this extra information before the sentence begins to help the reader. So, although she had ice cream for dessert, Mary would have preferred chocolate chip ice cream. However, in the meantime, here's two introductory phrases. Louise bought more ice cream for the party. Because chocolate chip ice cream was available, Raphael decided to stay for dessert. Since 1999, the factory has been hiring workers. While listening to music, Jane filled out the form. Before 2002, there was no clinic in the town. So one thing you can notice about these introductory phrases is they do not start with a noun. The sentences here start with nouns. So that's a clue for you. The other place we use commas with relative pronouns, there are three relative pronouns, that, which, and who. So for phrases with which, we always use a comma, and for phrases with that, we never use a comma. So this is the difference between the essential and the non-essential information. So if I say the book is on the table, it makes sense, but if I put in this extra information here, it's descriptive and it gives you more information about the book. If I say the book is the one that was written last year, if I take out that was written last year, then it doesn't make sense. The book is the one. It doesn't make sense. So we use which and that with things, and we use who with people. Now here you have to decide if the information is essential or non-essential. I would say 99% of the time it's going to be essential information. You need the information here to describe the noun so that you understand more clearly. And then whether to use who or whom. Who is like a subject, and whom is like an object. So this is the test that you can use. You can substitute he for who and him for whom. Notice how there's two M's here, and see what makes sense. So if I say he fell, the boy, instead of saying the boy, I can say he fell. But if I say him fell, that doesn't make sense. So who is the correct relative pronoun here. If I say the bell tolls for whom, if I change it to the bell tolls for he, it doesn't make sense. So the bell tolls for him makes sense. So we're going to use whom, and notice how this is a preposition, so this is an object of the preposition. And we use who for people. So that is used for objects and who is used for people. Okay, we also use commas around descriptive phrases and examples, which are basically non-essential information. They can be at the end or in the middle of the sentence. So here I've got two phrases with the descriptive information at the end of the sentence, and here I've got these descriptive information in the middle of the sentence. So you need to have commas on both ends of the phrase when it's in the middle. And then however is one of these words that I will go into more detail with, but it's also it's actually an adverb, and so that's the reason why it has commas around All right, so subordinating conjunctions are connectors. They connect phrases to the main part of the sentence, and the information that's connected really doesn't make sense without the main sentence. There are 102 subordinating conjunctions. These are the only ones I can think of off the top of my head. And they do not take commas. They connect without using a comma. One thing I want to point out is do not use as well as a substitute for and, especially when you have a list. You need to use and when you have a list. So if you're going to use since, it refers to an interval of time. So since I was born, since 1984, since the store opened this morning. And if you're not referring to time, then because is the substitute word. While means at the same time. So if that's not what you mean in your sentence, you can substitute although, and, or but. So notice how these subordinated conjunctions are in the middle of the sentence and there's no comma. There are correlative conjunctions. We use these in pairs: neither nor, either or, both and, whether or, not only but also. And here's some examples with that. They also do not use commas. And then for prepositional phrases and adverbial phrases, we do not use commas. And then if you're going to use this phrase, included but was not limited to, there's no commas. And then if you want to use compared, there's no comma here. Use compared with instead of compared to. It's broader. It includes negative and positive. Due to is considered a preposition, so there's no comma there, and there's no comma with regardless or regarding. So of course there's exceptions to the rules. These are all adverbs here, and they do use commas. These are all at the end of the sentence. If they're in the middle of the sentence, you need commas on both sides of the phrase. So these are some common mistakes that people make. They want to put a comma between the subject and the verb. They want to put a comma between the verb and the object. Those are the most common ones. All right, in the Grammar Girl book on page 113, there's this really fabulous chart that she has here, and I've gone over all the things in bold today. So you can look at the information about addresses and dates and numbers and cities and states yourself. And then I took the Grammar Girl chart and I took it one step further. Not only did I put in when commas are used, but I put in when they are not used, so that you have both. Okay, so I'm going to stop here, and my next topic is going to be the semicolon.